Hello everyone, back to you in today's second video. So we've already done the second seasonal model roundup for the spring. And that's here on the homepage of the video. Just scroll down, you'll find it underneath the link ads. Later on, that'll be placed on the spring updates and forecast page with a written summary of everything discussed in that update. We get 11 long-range models together to see what we're all showing for the spring. So check that out if you'd like to do that. This is our Sunday musing. So we're going to get various things together, a bit of an eclectic mix. We're going to have a look at the Stratosphere starting us off. We'll also have a look at sea surface temperature anomalies, see what they're doing in the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. Have a look at the QBO, have an update from the Gazobis solar tracker, and we'll look at weather next week to 10 days as well. So a lot to cram in for your Sunday afternoon update. Before I get on with all of that, though, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages. If you have a browse wish to click through the links, you'll be helping us to pay the website, and thanks very much for doing that. So, just starting off with the stratosphere first of all. Now, I've been talking about this impending stratospheric warming for quite a few days. It's underway. This is the current temperature from the JMA at 10 HPA, which is like the top, or one of the top levels of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. The black line here is telling us what the stratospheric temperature is doing, going right way back to the start of the season in September. Yesterday we had a really big rise in the black line. It really pushed up quite dramatically yesterday from around there to around here. In the last 24 hours, though, it's actually stalled a little bit. It hasn't gone that far up. It's just around that sort of level. Quite stratospheric warming, but to have a real impact on the atmosphere and on the weather in the troposphere has to go a lot higher than that. So in the next 2 or 3 days, we're going to be looking to lift this up to that sort of level. If we get to this sort of level, then that's a major stratospheric warming. I won't say sudden stratospheric warming, though, because that's a very strict definition that we have to meet to have a sudden stratospheric warming. But at the moment, it's sort of a moderate warming. Has stalled a little bit at 10 HPA, but I would expect over the next week we're going to have repeated sort of warmings pushing in towards the pole, which I'll show you in a moment with the GFS forecast for those stratospheric temperatures. So I'd expect this to lift up more over the next few days. That's 10 HPA. Lower down at 30 HPA, we have lifted the temperature up a little bit as well. So we've gone above the grey line. We've gone above average. Still nothing all that dramatic happening at 30 HPA. That's lower down. It takes a while for any warming that occurs at 10 HPA to get down to that lower level, so you wouldn't expect much to be happening there at this point. So let's have a look at the GFS forecast for the stratospheric temperatures over the North Pole in the coming couple of weeks. This is where we are today. You see that the core of the warming is still over Siberia with those red colours, but certainly temperatures are lifting up quite a lot over the North Pole at the moment. So we find things easing down a little bit over the next day, and then we get another really quite big warming on the 31st of January. So I think that is Tuesday. Another intense burst of warming is occurring across Siberia in the stratosphere. That one, again, pushing in towards the North Pole. So I would expect what's going to happen is that next couple of days, temperatures will remain close to where they are right now, and then they'll go up again as we get through into the middle part of the week. We'll have another push. Then temperatures sort of level off, but we get another go at trying to warm things up there on the 2nd of February over the stratosphere, staying significantly above average. And then we go through to the 4th, and here we go again. Another warming is occurring in the stratosphere, and this one's really pushing in towards the pole. So actually, as we get through to the 5th of February, we've got those red colours right over the top of the North Pole there. That one, possibly the highest we're going to get with the temperatures on the 5th of February in the stratosphere over the North Pole. That looks very significant indeed. And then we go through into the extended part of the GFS. We start off with very warm temperatures in the stratosphere, but very gradually it starts to cool down Again, of course, we can't maintain those temperature levels in the stratosphere all that long. So we finish up on the 14th of February, going a little bit colder. Again, but nothing to the extent of the cold temperatures that we had in the stratosphere earlier in the winter. So it's really over the next week or so that we get the main part of the stratospheric warming at 10 HPA, and then things level off as we go through into the second week of February. Let's have a look at how the ECMWF is seeing things going. So this is the excuse me, this is the temperature forecast from the ECMWF at the University of Berlin website. This is how things are today. This was generated last night, actually, on yesterday's midday run of the ECMWF. So this is how things are today. Again, major warming is occurring. The core of it is across Siberia, but it is pushing in towards the North Pole. The cross there is the top of the North Pole. We go through into the 31st of January, so on Tuesday, still looking pretty warm with those temperatures at 10 HPA. Into the start of February, this is 2nd of February, where things are levelling off, but notice, same as with the GFS, another repeated warming is occurring across Siberia, and that one again pushing in towards the North Pole as we get through into the 4th of February. So next weekend we get perhaps the peak of this warming event, with those temperatures pushing in towards the North Pole. And then after that, things start to level off a little bit. This takes us to the 6th of February, where the temperatures are beginning to wind down a tad. 30 HPA looking like this, when that's lower down, and we've got to see this warmth moving down into the lower levels of the atmosphere. First to 30 HPA and then going down into the troposphere, and that's the boundary of the atmosphere weather is taking place. This again is for the 31st of January, where you notice it's much colder then at 30 HPA compared to 10 HPA. So we haven't pushed that those warm temperatures down into the lower level at that point. Things have eased off with those cold temperatures, though, by the time we go through to the 3rd of February. Still looking fairly cold, but the temperatures are lifting up there somewhat. And then we go through to the 5th of February, where again, still quite cold, not really pushing those warm temperatures down, but that does look warmer than we are right now, most certainly over the North Pole at 30 HPA in the stratosphere. So it's still the idea, this is a fairly significant stratospheric warming that's occurring. It's bound to have some sort of effect on the atmosphere and on the weather patterns. Quite what that effect is, again, it looks like we're falling short of the sudden stratospheric warming, though, because for that we've got to send the zonal mean winds into reverse. So we've got to take them from westerlies to easterlies, and 10 and 30 HPA, and we're falling short of that. So this graph is showing that at 1 HPA, which is far up in the atmosphere into the stratosphere that you can go, it's very top of the stratosphere. Yes, there we are actually going into reverse with the zonal winds. We're going easterly at 1 HPA. But down here, this is the box that's the important one. This is for 10 and 30 HPA, where, again, you see we are falling just short of going negative. To go negative, go easterly, we'd have to go down there. Certainly it's a big drop in the zonal winds. They are weakening dramatically, really, from where they was earlier in the winter, which is sort of up here, to go down to here. They are getting much weaker, but they're not going into reverse. So that's falling short of the sudden stratospheric warming. And the ECMWF is quite consistent that we do fall just short of this. So I'm not entirely certain what the impacts of this warming will be, but I think it will certainly disrupt the polar vortex. And if everything lines up correctly, second half of February could produce some colder conditions. I wouldn't expect anything to the extent of what happened in 2013. where we did have a sudden stratospheric warming. We did get those zonal winds to go easterly in the early part of January 2013, and eventually finished up with an extraordinarily cold and wintry, snowy March. I would suspect we won't see anything as dramatic as that. But nevertheless, this is quite a pronounced warming that's occurring in the stratosphere over North Pole, and it could well have some impacts. No sign yet, though, that the Arctic Oscillation is responding to this. So this is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here tells us where the Arctic Oscillation has been. The red line, and that goes back to October, the red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. It's not driving anything, it's just telling you what the atmosphere is doing. So through most of the winter, the Arctic Oscillation so far has actually been positive. We had a prolonged run of negativity through October and November, but around the start of December, almost on the first day of December, we lifted the Arctic Oscillation into positive territory, went very positive around Christmas, and through most of January, the Arctic Oscillation has been pretty positive as well. And the GFS ensembles are forecasting that to remain. There are a few outlier members that are going negative into the second half of February. This is 1st of February just here. But the general trend of this ensemble is definitely to keep the Arctic Oscillation positive for the time being. So there's no sign yet that the GFS ensembles are responding to this stratospheric warming and producing blocking over North Pole. We'll know when they're starting to see blocking because the Arctic Oscillation will begin to go negative. And it might go negative very quickly and fairly dramatically. It might be a dramatic plunge into this sort of territory if we start to produce blocking within the ensemble, over the North Pole. North Atlantic Oscillation is the same idea. So again, the black line where the North Atlantic Oscillation's been, the red lines where the GFS ensembles forecasting the North Atlantic Oscillation to go. Right now, we're around neutral. And the forecast for the first half of February is to lift the North Atlantic Oscillation into positive territory. So it looks like for the first half of February, we're going to have the Arctic and the North Atlantic Oscillations going positive. This tells us that the westerlies are strengthening. We know this because we're going to have an unsettled week over the next week, and that probably lasts into the second week of February as well. So the westerlies are strengthening through the Atlantic. We're going to have a lot of rain and some quite strong winds as well, with the Arctic and North Atlantic Oscillations both in positive territory. It's very early to be seeing a response to this stratospheric warming in terms of these easterlies. We need to look at them again in around a week or two's time to see whether they are by then starting to respond. We'll keep an eye on that, of course. Thought I'd just throw this in. This is the current situation in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the ocean. Looking at the Pacific first of all, things have cooled down a lot in the northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean around here. The last 2 or 3 winters have been very warm up here, but now it's back to what you normally expect, as I've been explaining in the winter updates. I've been doing them over the last 2 or 3 years. This is normally a very cold part of the world in the northeastern Pacific Ocean, and that's more typical of what you expect to see there. So it could well be that the PDO, Pacific Decadal Oscillation, after having 2 or 3 years of being quite warm, is beginning to go cold again. In terms of the ENSO region, La Nina, and it was a very, very weak signal for La Nina anyway, that's fading away. Notice warm waters are beginning to gather off the coast of Peru. That's shallow water, so doesn't necessarily mean that we've got El Nino coming back, but a lot of the model output at the moment is trending that way towards El Nino returning through the middle part of the year, through the summer, and then into the autumn of 2017. Very surprised if it was to turn out to be another Super Nino, such as we had for 2015-2016, but it does look like we are trending back towards El Nino. However, with so much cold water in the northern Pacific, that might struggle. The El Nino will have a struggle to get going. So as I say, I'd be surprised actually if it turned out to be a big El Nino event. In the Atlantic, still quite warm through the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. And then further north, we've still got this cold blob around the south of Greenland. That's done us no favours this winter to get blocking. To get blocking over Greenland, you really want the sea surface temperature on is there to be warmer than average. So that's not helped, and partly explains why we haven't had any particularly cold weather in the west of Europe. It has been a really cold winter, of course, over in the east and the southeast of Europe. This is the GAVS Weather Vids winter daily solar activity tracker. This is tracking sunspot numbers on the solar disk. And last week when we looked at this, it went very positive. There we are. We had a bit of a spike up through the middle part of January. We're dropping back again with those sunspots now. Of course, as we know, we are moving into solar minimum, so the trend is downwards all the way to around 2019 when we'll be in the absolute solar minimum. But it's never a linear process, so you do get these spikes upwards in sunspot numbers, whilst the trend, of course, is down. So at the moment, the trend lines are actually ticking up from where they was earlier in the winter, which is around here. Trend lines have moved up. I'd expect these trend lines to start drifting downwards once again. This is dated from our good friend James Ackrill, of course. Big thanks to James for keeping this updated for GAVS Weather Vids. And we'll be doing Solar Sunday a week today, so I have much more on this. I've got a little bit about Solar Cycle 25, actually the next solar cycle. For Solar Sunday, which is going to be a week today. So if you're interested in what's happening on the sun and in terms of sunspots, that kind of thing, solar cycles, then next week we'll have much more on that. The QBO as well, if I want to throw this one in, quasi-biennial oscillation. We know that we had a good look at this back in the winter updates. Again, this is from the University of Berlin website. In unknown territory with the QBO. The QBO is effectively representing the zonal winds in the northern hemisphere. So when the QBO is westerly, the zonal winds are enhanced, which is generally a milder signal for the Atlantic and Europe. When the QBO is easterly, the zonal winds are reduced, and that can be the kind of signal. We should have been easterly with the QBO this winter. We should have been seeing this white area, or we should have been within the white area for 2016-2017. We started to get the easterly QBO at the beginning of 2016. There it is, just there, and also down here. But the westerly QBO killed it off, and this has never happened before, certainly back to 1950, probably back beyond that. The atmosphere has done something totally unique and something that it's never done before. So we are firmly still within the westerly QBO, and this has been a very long westerly QBO. It started in 2014-15. Just here, and we're still in it over here. So, as I say, the atmosphere has done something new and unique. And if you want a reason why we haven't had a cold winter in the west of Europe anyway, I suspect the QBO has been a lot to do with it. If we had been within an easterly QBO, because we know we've had a lot of cold air into Eastern Europe anyway, I suspect if we had been in an easterly QBO, we would have been able, via high pressure blocking, to bring that cold air from the east of Europe into the west of Europe. But because we're in a westerly QBO, it struggled to get through, especially without stratospheric warming or something to produce blocking. GFS ensembles then, and then we'll have a look at the next week's 10 days to wind things up. So this is how things are looking with the upper air temperatures over the next couple of weeks. Red line here, 30-year temperature average. Going to be milder than average for quite a few days this week, but over the weekend, towards the end of the week, into the weekend, going back towards average. Then it looks like we just remain close to average then going into the second week of February. Precipitation spikes show that we've got quite a bit of rain coming up over the next day or so, but the really wet weather looks like it's coming in at the weekend and then through into the second week of February, and this is associated with a jet stream pushing southwards. That looks quite alarming, but it might well be, and as we get closer to this, what normally happens is that those rainfall spikes get downgraded, so I wouldn't be all that worried about that at this stage. But of course, if it did turn out to be as wet as that through into the second week of February, then that would be quite significant rainfall indeed. So this is how the GFS is seeing things on Thursday, with quite a deep area low pressure out to west, bringing wet and windy weather in across the country. That wet and windy weather stays with us into Friday. This low pressure looks quite alarming. There's tight-packed isobars with that to be really windy, and heavy rain coming in on Saturday, 4th of February. That low pressure is in the North Sea on Sunday the 5th. Notice pressure is rising up over Scandinavia. That might be the first response to the stratospheric warming. It's a little bit early for that, though, I would have thought. Moving through to Monday the 6th of February, again, it all looks very unsettled, quite Atlantic-driven. Low pressure coming up against this block that is developing over Scandinavia and western parts of Russia. More really wet and windy weather, stormy weather there on Tuesday the 7th of February. And then we go through into Wednesday the 8th, which is day 10, and low pressure is becoming stuck across the country as the heights continue to rise up towards the northeast. The jet stream is trending southward, so we're almost on the cold side of the jet stream there by day 10, which is why we're having such vigorous areas of low pressure, and it's very wet potentially in the south, because the jet stream is steering those low pressure systems to the south of the country, or into the south of the country, much further south with that jet stream, and we will start to pull in colder air. And that is actually what happens in the extended part of the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. We take the low pressure with the jet stream down into the Mediterranean, and we do turn the winds into the east. Pressure rises across Scandinavia. We start to pull cold air in from the east through the second week of February. There's the upper air temperatures showing cold air coming back. I say that could be a response to the stratospheric warming, but it's a little bit early to say that. I'd expect more of a response in the second half of February if we're going to get one. ECWF finally, and again for Thursday, we're bringing wet and windy weather in off the Atlantic. Very unsettled through next weekend, with low pressure really dominating the weather. Notice again, heights are rising across Scandinavia and western parts of Russia. We go through into the extended part of the ECWF, which takes up to day 10. And it's a real battle eventually by day 10. We finish up with a real battle going on. Low pressure is in the Atlantic, but looks like it's weakening. High pressure is building over Scandinavia. And if we could run on another day or so, I suspect we would see this high pressure winning the battle and turning the winds into the east, as the GFS has done on the 6 o'clock run. Quite a lot of cold air sitting to our east as well, so if winds did go easterly, we would have to watch out for that through the second week of February. So, well, it's all on course in terms of the stratospheric warming. I don't think it's going to be a sudden stratospheric warming. It's not a technical sudden stratospheric warming, but it is a major warming that's going to be occurring, because it's going on for quite a long while, a week of it, repeated sort of spikes in the temperature coming along. So the upshot will be quite a significant effect on the stratosphere at 10 HPA. What the effects lower down are in terms of the tropospheric effects, troposphere being the layer of the atmosphere where weather is taking place, we've got to wait and see. The immediate response looks like it's going to be to turn increasingly unsettled and stormy later this week into next weekend, and then pushing through towards the second week of February. All eyes are on that Scandinavian high. Will the winds go easterly into the middle part of the month? Watch your space. Might have a look at the GFS ensembles tonight. I haven't done that for a little while, so if I've got time, might do that this evening. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon.